Well, good afternoon, everybody. So good to see you. Thanks for coming and seeing our talks. I think we've got some really great talks this afternoon. For me, I have three goals here. Number one, I want to introduce everybody to National Marine Sanctuaries. What are they? Where are they? What do they do? I want to connect National Marine Sanctuaries to coastal communities and coastal economies. And number three, I want you all to come work for us someday.
Work for me.
I want you to envision yourself working for NOAA. You can work for Steve in the National Center for Coastal and Ocean Science, that's fine. If you do work in sanctuaries, that's good too, even if you don't actually work for sanctuaries. I'm actually not a scientist. I'm more in the management policy side of the house. But we are a customer in sanctuaries. We are a customer of NOAA Science. Often we rely very heavily on the stuff that Steve and his team and the stuff that comes out of all the different labs that you've been hearing from yesterday and today. So just to acquaint you all, I know I've heard a lot about the different line offices, but just to review the bidding here. The National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration is part of the Department of Commerce. And within NOAA, there are these 6 line offices. And National Marine Sanctuaries are part of the National Ocean Service there on the right. Our reason for being, our organic legislation is the National Marine Sanctuaries Act. The National Marine Sanctuaries Act was passed in 1972, October of 1972. So it is turning 50 this year. And so that's a major milestone. And this, you have a question? I don't know. And so the National Marine Sanctuaries Act, and I'm going to be talking a little bit more about that later, but at its most basic level, the National Marine Sanctuaries Act authorizes NOAA to identify and designate areas of the marine environment as that have special national and international significance as national marine sanctuaries, and to protect them and manage them as comprehensively as possible. So our vision and our mission, pretty standard, what you might expect. I think what's important for me that I like to really point out here is that sanctuaries, I don't view them as an end in and of themselves. I view national marine sanctuaries and other types of marine protected areas as a way to inspire a healthy ocean, to a way to inspire the types of change, the types of science, the type of momentum that's needed for a healthy ocean generally. So we use these special places to really catalyze and focus energy and excitement. And so that's really what we're after here with national marine sanctuaries. These are our core values. These are how we operate as a team. And I think one of the ones I just want to focus on, I'm going to talk more about it, is community. National Marine Sanctuaries are designated in communities, for communities, and we manage them with communities at that level. We are a national program. I sit at NOAA headquarters in the Washington, D.C. area, but we try to really make every decision at that community level so that these places are relevant and meaningful for folks in the communities all around the country. So this is the National Marine Sanctuary System as it exists today in all of its glory and wonder. It's 620,000 square miles across the entire country, across the entire EEZ. We have sites from New England and Skowhegan Bay down the East Coast to the Florida Keys, and Flower Garden Banks up in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico. We have sites in the Great Lakes. We have 2 right now, and we're actually working on designating a 3rd. And then down the West Coast, of course, Papahānaumokuākea in the northwestern Hawaiian Islands, and even down in American Samoa. So it is an extensive system right now, and it's a growing system. You can see here on the legend that our system includes 15 national marine sanctuaries that are designated right now. You guys are just in time for the map. This is the best part. This is the best part. You didn't miss a thing. And we're actively working on designating 3 new sanctuaries. Right now, I mentioned the one in Lake Ontario, Chumash Heritage Sanctuary in Southern California, And then we're designating Papahanaumokuakea as a sanctuary as well. So that's the system. So these are the communities where we work. I mentioned the Sanctuaries Act. What is unique about our office and what is unique about the Sanctuaries Act in terms of all the other things that NOAA does in terms of its statutory mandates is we have a very broad mandate in a specific place. So whereas you might hear about the Magnuson-Stevens Fishery Conservation Management Act, the Marine Mammal Protection Act, the Endangered Species Act, those apply everywhere in the ocean, right? So they're very broad spatially, but they're focused on a particular species or a particular group of species. This is the inverse. So we're very focused on very particular places, but we have broad mandates. So we are charged with protecting all of the resources and all of the habitats in that place. And we do it, so we have resource protection programs, and that's what the Sanctuaries Act tells us to do. But we also have an education and outreach mandate. So we're required not just to protect these resources, but to tell people about them and try to make sure that people understand and are aware of how these are relevant to them and how it's important for them to contribute. We also have a research and monitoring. We don't do a lot of research and monitoring ourselves. We do some, but we actually rely on other parts of NOAA, like Steve's group, and other parts of NOAA to do a lot of that research for us. So, we try to cajole them to, do a lot of their research in sanctuaries as much as possible. And then community engagement. I mentioned this, I'm probably going to mention it 6 more times before I'm done. Community engagement is so key to who we are. It's such a core value, not just codified in the Sanctuaries Act, but all of our sanctuary managers live, eat, work, and play in the communities where we work. And so they're part of the communities. They're not just part of this faceless, government bureaucracy. They're there. Their kids go to school with the fishermen's kids that fish in the sanctuary. So this is very meaningful for us as employees, as it is in the communities. So in addition to the Sanctuaries Act and the mandates that I just discussed, also as part of the Biden-Harris administration, we are also working on, you may have heard about the Conserving and Restoring America the Beautiful initiative. And part of that initiative is to conserve 30% of the lands and waters by 2030. Also, called the 30 by 30 initiative. So that's a major driver for us as well. So you put all these things together, and what are some of and I mentioned that the Sanctuaries Act is turning 50. And so this is a moment in time with all of these things, all the things I mentioned, all of the attention and the focus that we're getting right now from the Biden-Harris administration. And we're really starting to think about, okay, I think we've done a lot of things over the last 50 years, but how do we position the sanctuary system so that it continues to contribute to community health, to ocean conservation over the next 50 years? And so some of the things that we've really been focusing on lately is our role in coastal economies. I'm going to talk a lot about that primarily through recreation and tourism, sustainable recreation and tourism. We've been thinking a lot about the peoples that have been managing these places for millennia. So doing a lot better in terms of engaging tribal and indigenous communities that are in the places where we manage. We're thinking a lot about how these places are changing with climate change and what should we be doing to making sure that our management approaches are going to be relevant for the future, understanding where the climate change is going. And then we're also thinking about making sure that our workforce and our support base for sanctuaries is reflective of the communities where we work. And quite frankly, it's not. And so we have to do a lot better making these places accessible, both literally accessible, but also more accessible in terms of people wanting to work for us and wanting to participate in our programs, et cetera. So tribal and indigenous engagement, I mentioned that briefly. One of the things that we're really thinking about here is co-management. In fact, one of the sanctuaries that we're working on right now is the Chumash Heritage Sanctuary that was actually nominated originally by a tribal community, the Northern Chumash Tribal Council. And we're really thinking through, okay, how do we make sure that we're continuing to engage that community in the management going forward? And this is kind of a new thing. And so how do we make sure that they're part of this process? It's not, for us, we have had models. We have, in fact, in the Olympic Coast National Marine Sanctuary, there are 4 trust tribes that we work with very closely with up there. So we have some experience in this, but we've got, it's still very much a whole new world there. So we're really working hard on that. I mentioned access, and this is, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. Sorry, that's my warning. I could go on and on about this. Sorry, I had to set my watch just so I knew where I was roughly time-wise. But we have a number of programs in place right now where we're really trying to expand the tent. Not so we're expanding spatially, I mentioned that already, but we're also trying to make sure that in the communities where we work right now, we're expanding the tent and bringing people in to our programs. And so we're really looking hard at our education and outreach programs. Are they relevant? Are they in the languages? Are they culturally relevant in the places where we work? So we're really asking some of these really tough questions about who finds sanctuary, who even knows sanctuaries are there. Because there are, believe it or not, there are some folks in what you might think sanctuary communities where they may be bordering on a sanctuary. They may not even know that there's a national marine sanctuary there and what that means for them, even if it is. So we've got a lot of work to do. But this is about resilient communities, and one of the things that I wanted to touch on and talk about and dispel the myth that there's some kind of choice between protecting marine ecosystems and enhancing the local economy. And that's just not true. I think we're I think a testament to the fact that you can have both. And it's not easy in some communities, but you can have both. And we work really hard to make sure that we are protecting these places, but we're also making sure that we are ensuring that the community and the economy of the community is maintained and that is thriving. And one of the ways that we do that is by supporting sustainable and accessible recreation and tourism in a lot of our places. There's perhaps no better National Marine Sanctuary where I could talk about this than the Florida Keys National Marine Sanctuary, where according to a recent study commissioned by the National Sanctuary Foundation, the sanctuary itself supports over $4 billion in economic activity for the state of Florida. Most of that is in the recreation and tourism sector. And so a lot of the things that we do in the Florida Keys have this lens of, okay, how can we make sure that we're protecting this place that is very much being loved to death in many ways. If anybody's been to the Florida Keys lately, I was just there, and a lot of the coral reefs are not in good shape. And it's, you pick your poison, it's overuse, overvisitation, overfishing, climate change, water quality issues, whatever. Coral cover is declining, fisheries are declining, and it can be depressing. But what we're doing is we are trying to change that narrative. We've got 2 major initiatives underway right now in the Florida Keys, both of which are going to both help protect and bring back the ecosystem, but also help maintain the very important recreation and tourism economy of the Florida Keys. So we have a restoration blueprint right now, which is a major overhaul of the management structure of the Florida Keys. And we're going to be issuing later on this year, we're going to be issuing our proposed rule on that. So that'll be out there for public comment. And then we also have Mission Iconic Reefs, which actually is going out at 7 reefs in the Florida Keys with many partners internal to NOAA, but also many partners in the area to actually plant corals, to take coral predators off. So we're actually at that place now in the Florida Keys where we're actually having to plant corals and take coral-eating snails off the reef. I actually got to see that firsthand myself on Sunday this weekend. It's a lot of work, and it needs a lot of people. So if you're interested, there are a lot of volunteer and employment opportunities down in the Florida Keys planting corals. So the other thing that we do, we have a program with Diving with a Purpose in the National Association of Black Scuba Divers, where we're looking at historic shipwrecks. And we're going to hear a little bit more about historic shipwrecks later on. So excited to hear about that. But DWP with the Florida Keys staff have now documented 4 historic shipwrecks in the Florida Keys. And what that does is it helps illuminate some of the really, really important stories that come along with those shipwrecks in the Florida Keys. And inspires a whole bunch of people that may not really care about marine conservation, but they might care about the history that's associated with the wreck of the slave ship Guerrero, right? So it's about making some of these personal connections. We can bring people in to ocean conservation through other avenues that they might not otherwise follow. So our great partners with DWP. And NABS and many like that are really helping to, like I said, build that tent bigger, bring more people into ocean conservation and using sanctuaries and using our programs to do that. We have a number of different opportunities that are out there, different pathways that people have come to our workforce. And one of these, we have a number of volunteer opportunities. The first bullet, we have sanctuary to participate. So we have sanctuary advisory councils. Every single sanctuary has a sanctuary advisory council. Each one of those meets at least 3 times a year. Many of them meet 2 times a year. So if you want to get engaged in a sanctuary in your community, go to a sanctuary advisory council meeting. There's other public meetings that we have all the time when we're designating new sites or we're doing management plan reviews. We want to try to get people as much as possible engaged in the process. There's the Holling Scholarship Program. There's, of course, you're well aware of the Education Partnership Program with minority serving institutions. And we have this sanctuary, many sanctuary staff have been served as mentors for undergraduates. And then we've also been host to many NERTOs as well over the last several years. There's also the Sea Grant Fellowship. I missed lunch, but I heard you just heard about the Canals Fellowship. Hope that was good. Many of our many Canals Fellows have also come to sanctuaries through that fellowship program. And then we also work with state Sea Grants. This is Christopher Howard. He was at the Georgia Sea Grant. He was the Georgia Sea Grant Fellow that worked with the Grays Reef National Marine Sanctuary staff. We have folks with State of California Sea Grant as well that we work with. So that's another way. And then the last thing I'm just going to touch on real quick is we also have the Dr. Nancy Foster Scholarship Program. You can read about it there. I won't go into too much, but that program was specifically put into the Sanctuaries Act. So this is a requirement by Congress for us to spend 1% of the total amount of money that Congress allocates to sanctuary to this program. And so this year, the total amount is about $600,000. And it funds students, master's and PhD students that can work on sanctuaries issues. And statutorily, the focus is on women and on people that identify in minority categories. And so if you're interested in this, please check that out too, the Dr. Nancy Foster Scholarship Program. So that is it. Before we go to questions, I think we have a little bit of time for questions, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to leave this slide up because this is the RV Manta. This is one of about 40 small boats that we have stationed at sanctuaries that do a lot of the research that carries Steve and his scientists out to help do the research in sanctuaries. And this is one of the ways that we inspire and encourage people to come do research in sanctuaries, give them a ride. And so I'm going to leave that up there because it's a beautiful boat, at least I think so. And it does a lot of great work. This one particular here was designed to go out 110 miles out, work on Flower Garden Banks National Sanctuary in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico. So this is our biggest one. But anyway, so with that, questions?
Thank you so much. Is that one located on Galveston? You have the boat in Galveston Island?
This is, yeah, actually.
I recognize
You recognize it? Yeah, this is at the Texas A&M Galveston campus. Yeah, it's right there.
Yeah. We can have 2 or 3 questions. We have about 4 minutes.
Right.
Oh, can you give the name of that scholarship again? And is it offered to undergrads?
It's not undergrad, no, it's not unfortunately. Yeah, it's the Dr. Nancy, I'll leave it up there for a second. There's a website. It's the Dr. Nancy Foster Scholarship. It's for master's and PhD students.
I think Hollings is for undergrads, right?
Yes, correct.
Hollings.
Yep. Yeah.
Thank you.
So for people who care about sanctuaries or want to learn more about them, but aren't academics or scientists or really in that niche, are there any citizen science initiatives within sanctuaries?
Yeah.
For people to get involved?
Yeah, great question. Great question. There are a number of citizen science programs that we have in sanctuaries really across the country. And some of them might be about identifying marine debris that is washing up on the shore. Some of them might be counting dead seabirds on the coast. We have a number that would be like the one with DWP, like mapping historic shipwrecks. Those kinds of things. So yes, there are a number of those kinds of opportunities to get involved in science. Yeah, absolutely.
Can we have one more question?
I think there was one in the back. Did you change your mind? Somebody had their hand. Don't be shy. Come on. That'd be great.
So I was at the AAUS conference last week, and we got to do a tour and a workshop on Manta.
Right on.
And I got to talk to the research associates there, and they were saying that following COVID, they're in critical need of divers.
Yeah.
To be a NOAA diver, you have to go through a special program. So can you articulate what that program looks like, and if there's opportunities to, I guess, pipeline students into that program?
I can't. I'm not, do you know?
Yeah, so you have to be a certified diver to start off with, and if you're not, they will train you if you're a NOAA staff member. But if you're a collaborator working to be able to dive aboard our ship, you have to go through their program. There are additional specific requirements for safety. So, for instance, they have to have a redundant air supply, and a lot of recreational divers and university divers do not dive with a redundant air supply, and you have to know how to use it. So, the cross certification isn't such a big deal if you're already a certified diver and you're working in collaboration with us. Straight off, if they're training you, it is a 3-week program. So I don't know how long the cross certification is, maybe about a week. And it's good for every 2 years, but you have to do some maintenance in between. So you have to dive every 6 weeks, or maybe it's 2 months now to maintain that certification. It is significant, but if you're interested in diving as a career, it is not a large ounce.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks.
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thanks, everybody.